6 cups of coffee. Coffee 5. The right and wrong ways of making coffee, as described by Mrs. D.A. Lincoln. The wrong way. Buy the cheapest coffee, that is, the kind which costs the least money, without regard to its purity or quality. Use more or less coffee, just as it happens. Accurate measurement is not essential. Put it in an old tin coffee pot, pour on water from the tea kettle, never mind about the quantity or its temperature, or the time it has been in the kettle, since, as it comes from the tea kettle, it must be all right. Let it boil indefinitely, and if, when breakfast is ready, the water has boiled away, just pour in more. If you can afford it, add 1 or 2 eggs at any time during the process, when you happen to think of it. If it be royally, strain it, if you can find a strainer, and serve it with, yes, common brown sugar and skim milk will do, if you choose to think so. The compound is what? If there be any left, keep it warm on the back of the stove until the next meal. As this long steeping makes it dark, it must be strong, so add more water. After dinner, set the pot away, and the next morning pour out the old grounds. Rinse it, or not, just as your time will allow, and repeat the process of making. Wash the coffee pot occasionally, if the outside need it, but rinsing is sufficient for the inside. The right way. Buy pure coffee, not necessarily that which costs most, but buy it from some reliable dealer. Mixtures of 1/3 mocha and 2/3 Java, or half mocha and half male berry Java, have given general satisfaction. There are some varieties of South American coffee which are very good. Occasionally, one finds a brand through some friend who is in the business, or who has had opportunity of procuring it directly from coffee-growing countries, which is of such remarkable excellence that it leads one to suspect that much of the best coffee grown is not in the market. The raw berries are tough, difficult to grind, and have but little flavor. Roasting makes the berries brittle and crisp, and when properly done, develops a fine flavor. But when half done, or done to excess, the result is a raw or bitter flavor. Many prefer to roast and grind the coffee for themselves, but in coffee houses, the arrangements for roasting are so complete that it is better for small families to buy roasted coffee and to grind it as needed, or to buy it ground in a small quantity. It should be kept in airtight tin cans or glass jars that the fine flavor may be preserved. Opinions vary as to the best kind of coffee pot. Some prefer porcelain or granite ware, others prefer tin. But all good housekeepers agree that absolute cleanliness is of the utmost importance. The pot should be cleansed every time it is used. All parts of it, spout not excepted. A brown deposit is soon formed on the inside of the pot if the coffee is allowed to stand in it long, or if it be not often and thoroughly cleansed. An important point, and one often overlooked even by intelligent housekeepers, is that the water should be freshly boiled in a clean kettle. Water, in boiling, loses the air or gases which give it a fresh taste and sparkling appearance. It should be used as soon as boiled, or it becomes flat and tasteless. A brown substance is deposited on the inside of the kettle, and this, if allowed to accumulate, imparts an unpleasant taste to the water. Yet there are many housekeepers, exquisitely neat in many ways, who seldom wash the inside of a tea kettle. It is an excellent plan to keep a small kettle to be used only in boiling water for tea or coffee. Wash and wipe it carefully every time it is used. The proportions of water in coffee are 1 heaping tablespoonful of ground coffee to 1/2 pint cupful of boiling water. Reduce the amount of coffee slightly when several cupfuls are required. It takes a larger proportionate amount of both coffee and water to make just enough for 1 cupful than for more, as the grounds absorb a certain portion of the water, and the last coffee poured out is not as clear as the first. Coffee should be made in such a way that the full strength and aroma may be obtained without developing the tannic acid. Whether coffee shall be boiled or not will probably always be a question. Many think it has a raw taste, if not boiled. Others contend that, in boiling, much of the aroma is lost. Boiling makes the mixture oily, and it must stand long enough to let the grounds settle and the liquid become clear. If the upper part is not large enough to contain all the water desired, it must be poured in small portions. The full strength and aroma are thus obtained. No clearing is necessary, and if care be taken to observe all the minute points in the directions, the beverage will invariably be good. For good breakfast coffee, cream, scalded milk, and block sugar are necessary. The milk should be scalding hot, but never boiled, as boiled milk gives an unpleasant flavor. Ascertain the taste of those at the table, as most coffee drinkers prefer to have the coffee poured on the cream and sugar. 1 tablespoon of cream, 2 of hot milk, and 2 blocks of sugar, with an extra block in the saucer, is a fair proportion for the breakfast cup. Pour in the coffee until the cup is 3/4 full. Never fill it to overflowing. After dinner coffee, or black coffee, is made in the same way, a double proportion of coffee being used. It should be very strong and perfectly clear. Serve it in small cups with block sugar if desired, but not with cream or milk, as the milk counteracts the purpose for which the coffee is taken. Coffee is stimulating.
Chapter 1. Memory, its importance. It needs very little argument to convince the average thinking person of the great importance of memory, although even then very few begin to realize just how important is the function of the mind that has to do with the retention of mental impressions. The first thought of the average person when he is asked to consider the importance of memory is its use in the affairs of everyday life, along developed and cultivated lines, as contrasted with the lesser degrees of its development. In short, one generally thinks of memory in its phase of a good memory as contrasted with the opposite phase of a poor memory. But there is a much broader and fuller meaning of the term than that of even this important phase. It is true that the success of the individual in his everyday business, profession, trade, or other occupation depends very materially upon the possession of a good memory. His value in any walk in life depends to a great extent upon the degree of memory he may have developed. His memory of faces, names, facts, events, circumstances, and other things concerning his everyday work is the measure of his ability to accomplish his task. And in the social intercourse of men and women, the possession of a retentive memory, well stocked with available facts, renders its possessor a desirable member of society. And in the higher activities of thought, the memory comes as an invaluable aid to the individual in marshaling the bits and sections of knowledge he may have acquired, and passing them in review before his cognitive faculties. Thus does the soul review its mental possessions. As Alexander Smith has said, a man's real possession is his memory. In nothing else is he rich. In nothing else is he poor. Richter has said, memory is the only paradise from which we cannot be driven away. Grant but memory to us, and we can lose nothing by death. Lactantius says, memory tempers prosperity, mitigates adversity, controls youth, and delights old age. But even the above phases of memory represent but a small segment of its complete circle. Memory is more than a good memory. It is the means whereby we perform the largest share of our mental work. As Bacon has said, all knowledge is but remembrance. And Emerson, memory is a primary and fundamental faculty, without which none other can work. The cement, the bitumen, the matrix in which the other faculties are embedded. Without it, all life and thought were an unrelated succession. And Burke, there is no faculty of the mind which can bring its energy into effect unless the memory be stored with ideas for it to look upon. And Basile, memory is the cabinet of imagination, the treasury of reason, the registry of conscience, and the council chamber of thought. Kant pronounced memory to be the most wonderful of the faculties. Kay, one of the best authorities on the subject, has said regarding it, unless the mind possessed the power of treasuring up and recalling its past experiences, no knowledge of any kind could be acquired. If every sensation, thought, or emotion passed entirely from the mind the moment it ceased to be present, then it would be as if it had not been, and it could not be recognized or named should it happen to return. Such an one would be not only without knowledge, without experience gathered from the past, but without purpose, aim, or plan regarding the future, for these imply knowledge and require memory. Even voluntary motion, or motion for a purpose, could have no existence without memory, for memory is involved in every purpose. Not only the learning of the scholar, but the inspiration of the poet, the genius of the painter, the heroism of the warrior, all depend upon memory. Nay, even consciousness itself could have no existence without memory, for every act of consciousness involves a change from a past state to a present. And did the past state vanish the moment it was past, there could be no consciousness of change. Memory, therefore, must be said to be involved in all conscious existence, a property of every conscious being. In the building of character and individuality, the memory plays an important part, for upon the strength of the impressions received and the firmness with which they are retained depends the fiber of character and individuality. Our experiences are indeed the stepping stones to greater attainments, and at the same time our guides and protectors from danger.
Chapter 7, Controlling the Mind. People say, one can't help one's thoughts, but one can. The control of the thinking machine is perfectly possible. And since nothing whatever happens to us outside our own brain, since nothing hurts us or gives us pleasure except within the brain, the supreme importance of being able to control what goes on in that mysterious brain is patent. The idea is one of the oldest platitudes, but it is a platitude whose profound truth and urgency most people live and die without realizing. People complain of a lack of power to concentrate, not witting that they may acquire the power if they choose. And without the power to concentrate, that is to say, without the power to dictate to the brain its task and to ensure obedience, true life is impossible. Mind control is the first element of a full existence. Hence, it seems to me, the first business of the day should be to put the mind through its paces. You look after your body inside and out. You run grave danger in hacking hairs off your face. You employ a whole army of individuals, from the milkman to the pig killer, to enable you to bribe your stomach into decent behavior. Why not devote a little attention to the far more delicate machinery of the mind, especially as you will require no extraneous aid? It is for this portion of the art and craft of living that I have reserved the time from the moment of quitting your door to the moment of arriving at your office. What? Am I to cultivate my mind in the street, on the platform, in the train, and in the crowded street again? Precisely. Nothing simpler, no tools required, not even a book. Nevertheless, the affair is not easy. When you leave your house, concentrate your mind on a subject, no matter what, to begin with. You will not have gone 10 yards before your mind has skipped away under your very eyes and is larking round the corner with another subject. Bring it back by the scruff of the neck. Ere you have reached the station, you will have brought it back about 40 times. Do not despair. Continue. Keep it up. You will succeed. You cannot by any chance fail if you persevere. It is idle to pretend that your mind is incapable of concentration. Do you remember that morning when you received a disquieting letter which demanded a very carefully worded answer? How you kept your mind steadily on the subject of the answer, without a second's intermission, until you reached your office, whereupon you instantly sat down and wrote the answer? That was a case in which you were roused by circumstances to such a degree of vitality that you were able to dominate your mind like a tyrant. You would have no trifling. You insisted that its work should be done, and its work was done. By the regular practice of concentration, as to which there is no secret, save the secret of perseverance, you can tyrannize over your mind, which is not the highest part of you, every hour of the day and in no matter what place. The exercise is a very convenient one. If you get into your morning train with a pair of dumbbells for your muscles or an encyclopedia in 10 volumes for your learning, you would probably excite remark. But as you walk in the street or sit in the corner of the compartment behind a pipe or strap hang on the subterranean, who is to know that you are engaged in the most important of daily acts? Throw away the suggestion, and you throw away the most precious suggestion that was ever offered to you. It is not my suggestion. It is the suggestion of the most sensible, practical, hard-headed men who have walked the earth. I only give it to you at second hand. Try it. Get your mind in hand and see how the process cures half the evils of life, especially worry, that miserable, avoidable, shameful disease, worry. Try it. Get your mind in hand and see how the process cures half the evils of life, especially worry, that miserable, avoidable, shameful disease, worry.
Chapter 3, Air. Of the three things that are indispensable for the subsistence of man, namely air, water, and food, the first is the most important. Hence it is that God has created it in such large quantities as to make it available to all of us for nothing. Modern civilization, however, has rendered even fresh air somewhat costly, or in order to breathe fresh air, we have to go out of towns, and this means expense. The residents of Bombay, for instance, distinctly improve in health in the air of Mathuran, or still better, of the Malabar Hills. But they cannot go to these places without money. Hence, in these days, it would hardly be true to say that we get fresh air gratis, as we used to in the old days. But whether fresh air is available gratis or not, it is undeniable that we cannot get on without it. We've already seen that the blood circulates over the body, returns to the lungs, and after being purified, starts its round again. We breathe out the impure air and take in oxygen from the outside, which purifies the blood. This process of inspiration and expiration goes on forever, and on it depends man's life. When drowned in water, we die, because then we are unable to let the impure air in the body and take in pure air from outside. The divers go down into the water in what is known as a diving bell, and they take in fresh air through a tube which leads to the top. Hence it is they are able to remain underwater for a long time. It has been ascertained by experiments that no man can live without air for as long as 5 minutes. We often hear of the death of little children when they are held so close to the bosom by ignorant mothers as to make it impossible for them to breathe. We should all be as much against the breathing of impure air as we are against the drinking of dirty water and the eating of dirty food. But the air we breathe in is, as a rule, far more impure than the water we drink or the food we eat. We are all worshippers of concrete objects. Those things that can be seen and felt are regarded by us as of far greater importance than those which are invisible and intangible. Since air belongs to this latter class of objects, we fail to realize the evil wrought by the impure air that we breathe. We would think twice before eating the leavings of another man's food or drinking out of a cup polluted by another man's lips. Even those who have not the least sense of shame or repugnance would never eat another man's vomit or drink the water which has been spat out by him. Even those who are dying of hunger and thirst would refuse to do that. But alas, how few of us realize that the air we inhale is so often the impure and poisonous air which has been exhaled by others, and which is surely no less objectionable than a man's vomit. How strange that men should sit and sleep together for hours in closed rooms and go on inhaling the deadly air exhaled by themselves and their companions. How fortunate for man that air should be so light and diffusive and capable of penetrating the smallest holes. Even when the doors and windows are closed, there is generally some little space between the walls and the roof through which some air from outside manages to get in, so that the inmates of the room have not to breathe exclusively poisoned air. The air that we exhale mixes with the air outside and is rendered pure again by an automatic process that is always going on in nature. Now we are able to understand why so many men and women should be weak and diseased. There can be absolutely no doubt that impure air is the root cause of disease in 99 cases out of every 100. It follows that the best way of avoiding disease is to live and work in the open air. No doctor can compete with fresh air in this matter. Consumption is caused by the decay of the lungs due to the inhaling of impure air, just as a steam engine which is filled with bad coal gets out of order. Hence, doctors say that the easiest and the most effective treatment for a consumptive patient is to keep him in fresh air for all the 24 hours of the day. It is, of course, essential to know how we can keep the air pure. In fact, every child should be taught this, the value of fresh air, as soon as it is able to understand anything. If my readers would take the trouble to learn the simple facts about the air and would put their knowledge into practice, while teaching their children also to do the same, I shall feel immensely gratified. The air is our food for all the 24 hours of the day. Why then should we be afraid of it? The air is our food for all the 24 hours of the day. Why then should we be afraid of it?